Good evening and welcome to the Writer's Block. I'm your host, John Ronan, and as you know, because we are in our 36th year, I talk to writers about their craft, what they're working on, what they've accomplished in the past, what they're planning for the future. It's a slightly wider net, however. We do have on other brands of artists. We have had on painters, actors, sculptors. If you have an idea for a writer or other brand of artist who might be a good fit for the Writer's Block, watch for our address at the end of the show. We'd love to get your suggestions. I also want to remind you, as usual, that the Writer's Block and all the original programming that comes out of 1623 Studios is a result of cable access television. You don't get that with other means of accessing the net. So you stick with cable, stick with the Writer's Block. Tonight, I'm very happy to say we do have a writer, a very distinguished writer, known internationally. Her name is Danuta Borchardt, and I'm going to begin the introduction by reading one paragraph of her biography, which appears in the back of this brand new wonderful book, You Can't Talk This Way. Danuta Borchardt is a Polish-born émigré living in the United States since 1959. She is a retired psychiatrist and retired instructor of clinical psychiatry at the Harvard Medical School. Now a writer of short stories, some surrealist and influenced by André Breton's surrealist movement in the 1930s, which were published in The Exquisite Corpse in the 1980s and 1990s. Welcome to the Writer's Block, Danuta. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you very much, John. I really feel honored, and it's a great pleasure to be with you again in the studio.
You were on once some years ago.
Yes, this was when I was translating. I translated the Polish avant-garde writer Witold Gombrowicz. I think that was after the first translation for the Durka.
And your translations, by the way, have been published by Yale Press and by Grove, very distinguished publishers indeed.
If I may say so, and won some prizes.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm not very humble.
No. I always have trouble with that myself. You said before we went on, you described a little bit of your emigration from Poland that eventually put you here in the United States and in Gloucester. Can you go over that just quickly for our audience?
Yes. When I was on a vacation with my grandmother in 1939, I was 9 years old in eastern Poland. And that's when the Soviets invaded. So I was there, and we were there in the country, and they also moved to Vilno, which was my birthplace. Now it's Lithuania's capital, Vilnius. So we moved there, and then after 2 years, my mother managed to get an illegal escape to Sweden. Then I lived there for 2 years, went to middle school, learned Swedish, and then we went to London. I was then high school and stayed in London for many years until I went to Dublin to medical school.
Dublin, Ireland, one of my favorite cities.
Oh, it is. I love Ireland.
and you came here in 1959.
Yes, because I was interested in learning about psychotherapy in psychiatry. That was my preferred approach. And the Boston City Hospital had a residency for that, so I applied for the job and I got the job. So my husband and our 1-year-old son came over here in '59.
And you led the way.
And what?
You led the way.
Well, he was very happy to come here too.
And how did you find Gloucester?
A friend of ours found it for us. She knew a lot about real estate here in Gloucester, and she said, "There's a great house. You must buy it. If you don't like it, get something else." But we stayed there since here in 1965.
In Ward 5, where you are now.
Western Avenue, yeah.
Western Avenue. I mentioned and I held up, You Can't Talk This Way, your collection of short stories. And it's a wonderful book. I enjoyed it. And it's, as you say in the notes here, it's surrealistic, mostly surrealistic. Can you tell us what surrealism is?
Well, I came to it quite happenstance. Towards the end of my medical practice, I got to the end to write. So I wrote a short story, and I looked where to publish it. And one of the magazines was Exquisite Corpse.
Exquisite Corpse.
Yeah, that was the first story, which is the first story in the book, Armchair. And then Andrei Dresko was a publisher, and he published anything I sent him. But unfortunately, then they run out of money and energy, so it now exists as Cyber Corpse, but then it was Exquisite Corpse.
So when did you start publishing these stories?
I tried since 90s, probably. But it didn't take here in the States because André Breton's surrealism came here and caught on in poetry and visual arts, in films, but not in fiction. So my stories, the editors somehow didn't just catch on until this young publisher suddenly came across it and just liked to publish it. So that was about 40 years ago that I started. But 20 of those years were mixed up with the translation of Gombrowicz and the Polish poet Norwid.
He is not surrealistic. He's a traditional novelist, is that right? The Polish gentleman that you translated.
Oh yeah, no. He was an avant-garde writer. He was surrealistic in many ways, and he wrote in his novels against authority and so on. So they wouldn't publish him in Poland, which was under the communist regime.
Which you escaped.
Yeah.
Because of your mother's wisdom.
Right.
The stories are sometimes 13 or 14 pages long. Sometimes they're 1 page long. And I wonder if you could read for us a short story called Onion. It's a 3 paragraph story that might give our audience a feel of surrealistic writing, your surrealistic writing. I will hand this over to you.
Can I just intercept that surrealism is misunderstood very often here, because according to André Breton, it was sur réalité, which means about reality, on reality. So surrealistic writing is not mystic writing, it's not fantasy, it's something based on real things, because in Breton's idea it was a reaction to the tragedies of World War I in Europe. So thinking of those times, just all the logic wasn't worth much, so that he established his movement, the surrealism.
Sur meaning not above, but on the topic of.
On top, about, yeah.
Yes. The story that I want to ask you to read is The Onion, and that is on, I'm going to find the page here, It's not the second story. It is the fourth or fifth story, page 30. And I will give you the book.
Thank you. An onion. Gray stockings were her favorite. They went very well with all her dresses and set off their color to advantage. Red, blue, navy, coral, green, no matter which dress she wore, she knew all would be well, but especially well if the color of her dress was indigo. This carried her with gusto everywhere. But where was everywhere? Everywhere was inner sanctum, but where was everywhere? Inner sanctum, it was outer sanctum, it was the green underleaves of precaution, it was the overleaf of jeopardy. Everywhere was every time, and every time was everywhere. It would be in the head of Amanda's stocking once a hole appeared in it. Then the bold onion of her heel would take over, and everywhere would just be that. The hole would take over the hole. The onion was bitter and strong, and even policemen would cry at night at the sight of it, especially one policeman, though they had less than all the others the capacity to cry. But the sight of an onion in Amanda's grey stocking, in the inner and outer sanctum, under and over the leaf of everywhere, was more than he could bear. He relinquished the banner of valor that he had won upon approval, conditionally and reservedly, and followed her to the end of her tether. It was somewhere he had never been before. It was at the end of a green lane where papuchas were blooming, and where the scent of heretofore was bitter and sweet, and obviated the scent of the onion of Amanda's heel. Her joy rested with sadness and blended with the indigo blue of her dress.
Thank you. You mentioned earlier that surrealism caught on with poets. And I have a related question. Are some of these short stories arguably prose poems?
I didn't set out to do that, really, but I love poetic prose, and so I was trying to write as beautifully as I can, and if it sounded poetic, so much the better.
One of them, the Jerusalem story, seems to me very much a prose poem because you use some words concretely, as they say, for their shape, not in a line, not horizontal.
No.
So it's very striking, which is certainly one of your intentions.
Yes.
When you published these and they came out, what kind of reaction did you get from people?
Well, it was published very recently. It was published in September this year. So, no, not many people have read it yet, but those who read, they enjoy it and think they're queer stories, and they enjoy the surprise. And
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought that some of these were published in other places.
No, the only other place was Exquisite Corpse.
Yeah.
And Andrei Cudrescu published all of those, which some of them I hear. But otherwise, there was no reaction, in fact, until this young publisher saw my writing.
Well, I want to say for my money, this is a wonderful book, and I enjoy these stories, especially some of the individual characters. I want to ask you about Abe and Kathy. They're a couple in a short story towards the end,
Right.
and I don't want to say any spoilers, but Abe is troubled by his differences with his wife, on religious questions and belief in God. Can you tell us something about how you thought of that story, how you came up with it, and does it reflect your own beliefs?
Well, it came to me because Kathy, his wife, was an avid Catholic, whereas he was had no religion. In fact, he didn't believe in God. He didn't believe that he has a soul. He said he doesn't believe in soul until somebody proves it to be in a double version study. Otherwise, where is the soul? So that was a big difference between us, and it reflects my thoughts too.
Poland is about as Catholic as Ireland, I think.
Yes.
It's just homogeneous religion, or it was.
Yeah.
I know Ireland is getting a bit more diverse, but not what Americans would call diverse. Mm-hmm. You were raised strictly Catholic?
I was raised Catholic.
Yes.
And I was a good little Catholic girl, and I went to church. My nanny took me to church. But then, as time went on, and I married my first husband, he had no religion, really. My husband.
He didn't have any.
No, he didn't.
So this is very much like Kathy and Kathy and Abe.
In a way, yes. But then, you know, when I was in Dublin studying medicine, a priest would come to our houses on Sunday and wonder, why are we at home instead of at Mass? So I explained once he came, my husband was away out somewhere, I explained to him that he went through had a hard life. He went to was taken to concentration camp by the Germans. He wasn't a Jew, he was just taken from random catching of people in Warsaw. So he was taken to Auschwitz, which was the dispersal station, and then to a concentration camp in Mauthausen-Gusen. He was spent there 3 years. And he said that had the war lasted longer, we would have been sent to gas like the Jews were. So when I told the priest this, he was quite impressed and said, well, he's excused from not going to church.
I think he must be passed for quite a liberal priest in Ireland at that time. That's a very wonderful story. And this story is informed by your experience there, yeah. Although, well, I don't want to spoil it. It's a wonderful story. But we don't know what happens at the end. It's kind of open-ended, as life is, yeah. Open-ended, and we don't know what happens to Abe exactly, as we don't know what happens to Mimi exactly. In another story, she's in. Is it Mimi?
Oh yes, Mimi. Yes, that's.
In the yellow.
Yeah, that's my.
The Yellow Bird of Java.
Yeah, that's my story, inspired by the Southwest, American Southwest. I just love it. And so Mimi is a character in that story, yes. There's
a wonderful, wonderful line I want to make sure I mention that's in, I'm skipping now to the, I put on my glasses. Skipping now to You Can't Talk This Way. The title is the story that involves Abe and Kathy. But there's a wonderful line in there, among many wonderful lines in this. He talks about the process of slow death, which in more conventional terms we call life. That's a magnificent line, and it's absolutely true. It's surrealistic, and it's a wonderful line. There are many in this book. I want to recommend it highly to all our audience.
Thank you.
I want to make sure that I get to mention some of the other markers I had in here.
And by the way, I don't categorize myself as a surrealist writer. Many of my stories are not surreal. I just want to mention that. That's not I don't have this genre of being a category of being a surrealist writer.
So you borrow some surrealistic traits or tricks,
Yeah.
traits and tricks,
Yeah.
When it suits your
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah, but some are just plain ordinary stories without necessarily anything above reality, surreal.
I mentioned the Yellow Bird of Java, and the woman who was a character in that. Her name is Mimi. We don't know what happened to her. We can guess, but also we don't know what happened to Abe, although we can guess, and we don't know what happened to Melvin in letters, although we can guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there a repetitive, important message do you want to get with, that mystery at the end of so many of these stories?
No, not really. No, because generally when I start a story, I don't know where it will lead me, and then it develops, and I hope it develops into something more universal. But the ending, without knowing, I trust the reader's imagination to end the story, if he or she wants it.
Well, they are.
But it's not intended. It's not intended.
That reminds me of some people saying that when you sit down and write it, start a novel or a short story, the characters take off by themselves. Do you feel that way sometimes?
Yes, I do. The whole story takes off by itself.
I wish that happened more often with my poems, but the short story that I mentioned earlier that I think comes close to being a prose poem is Poor Jerusalem. Now, I don't know, I'm going to ask Emily if she can zero in on this book. I don't know if it's going to be clear enough to see how the language is moved around concretely. Yes, you got it, moved around concretely, and you played around with that. It must have been impossible to type.
It was. Like the word up is written the line above.
Yes.
Or something down the territory, it slides down. But I thought that would be too much to put on paper. But so I straightened it all out. But I also sent the original. But so the publisher decided, yeah, let's go back to the original. So it's thanks to him that you're enjoying this story in its true way.
That's the only one in which that is done, I think. The manipulation of the fonts and the individual letters.
Well, he accepted my original manipulation, which I thought was too much to do for a book.
Yes, it's used frequently in a lot of poetry now.
Oh, in poetry, yes. Oh,
very,
yes,
very,
I know.
very much, yes.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to see, before we run out of time here, I want to ask, okay. In letters, it's a story I mentioned earlier by mentioning Marvin. We don't know what happens to him, but he has a habit of writing letters to people he doesn't know. Can you tell me where that idea came from? Because it's very intriguing.
I don't know.
That's a good, honest answer. He looks up Now, he looks up, we don't have these anymore, a phone book.
I
But-
do have it still. That's how I found your telephone number. Your recent number is the same as the old number.
Really?
In the book, I have it.
Well, I haven't seen a phone book in quite some time. But where did you get that idea about Mervyn? I'm getting Marvin, looking in a phone book and picking out random names to write letters to people.
It's hard for me to know. Maybe it's a sort of rebellion against his father, who was not very kind to him. He was an austere man and so on. So maybe it's just an offshoot of rebelling and doing something different. And also, I thought that picking up stories from the directory would be fun, and looking up addresses. So I played with the addresses. Then those were conscious.
Yes, he mentions some of the addresses in here, and I think that's it's a wonderful idea. And there's multiple, well, not multiple, but there's two major plots in here. He's writing letters, but also he's hiking.
Yeah.
And falling down, so you don't know if this is a reverie or whether it's actually happened.
Well, it happens. It happens in the story. It just not strictly spelled out it's not spelled out what happens, but it's a real thing that happens to this man.
And we don't know what happens to him in the end. We're almost out of time.
Yeah.
Danuta, Borchardt, I want to thank you very much for coming down and being on the Writer's Block again and sharing some of the background, your personal background and the background to this book. You can't talk this way. This is a wonderful, wonderful book. It's intriguing. Every story is interesting, and the people and characters are interesting. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Well, thank you very much for having me here. I really enjoyed and feel really flattered and honored and happy. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. I want to thank our TV audience as well for being with us tonight. If you've learned something about really fine writing, informed partially by the surrealistic movement, then the Writer's Block has done its job. Thanks for being with us, and I hope to see you again next time on the Writer's Block. Good night.